Hello and welcome to our English news edition, coming to you from Canal, Algérie. To the headlines. On the eve of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, the President of the Republic reiterates Algeria's unwavering position concerning the Palestinian struggle for recovering sovereignty. The President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, receives the Tunisian head of government, Najla Bouden, now on a visit to our country. The 5th annual MENA Congress kicks off in Algiers with a particular attention paid to local governance to cope with the ongoing changes. And as usual, a special focus on the social turmoil in Morocco to denounce misery and normalization. Good evening, those were the major headlines. First, the President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, sent a message on the eve of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. A message in which he affirmed Algeria's firm and unwavering position in support of the struggle of the Palestinian people in order to regain their rights granted for them by the international legitimacy. The President of the Republic highlighted celebrating this day is an explicit affirmation of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people to establish their independent state with Al-Quds as its capital, as it is also an opportunity to remind the international community of its historical, political, legal, moral, and human responsibilities towards it. What the Palestinian people need is for international solidarity to be translated into real steps and measures which calls for a firm stance from the international community, notably from the Security Council and the General Assembly, not only to put an end to the occupation which refuses to abide by international legitimacy and resolutions, but rather an effective and strong opposition to the settlement system through which the occupation undermines all changes of achieving the two-state solution, which by adopting it creates a bitter reality of discrimination and double standards. On the occasion, the President of the Republic once again called on the need to apply the provisions of the 4th Geneva Convention and other international legal references and to rely on the principles of accountability and equality before international justice, and that by activating the necessary mechanisms for judicial and criminal prosecution for the increasing violations committed by the occupation and providing international protection for the defenseless Palestinian people. The process of solidarity with the Palestinian people, affirms the President of the Republic, is not limited to delivering speeches, but rather lies in working on effective plans that lead to achieving a final solution that enables them to live in dignity with full sovereignty on their land. It also lies in intensifying the contributions likely to confront the efforts meant to marginalize the Palestinian cause. It is what Algeria always prevented, as it has with all the direct and personal supervision of President Tebboune, hosted the reconciliation process between the Palestinian factions, and which was crowned with the adoption of the Algiers Declaration. A declaration highly welcomed by the Secretary General of the United Nations, as well as the Secretary General of the League of Arab States, in addition to many other countries, as it aims to end division and rallying around unified demands that eventually lead to justice for the Palestinian people, restoring their freedom and sovereignty from which they were robbed for decades. In this context, the President of the Republic reiterated his commitment to place the Palestinian cause as first and central issue in light of the current international situation during the Arab Summit recently held in Algiers, and which confirmed once again Algeria's unwavering support to the rights of the Palestinian people for freedom, self-determination, and the establishment of a fully independent Palestine according to the borders of 1967, with Al-Quds as its capital. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, received on Monday the Tunisian head of government, Najla Bouden. The audience took place in the presence of the Prime Minister, Ayman bin Abdurrahman, as well as the Foreign Affairs Minister, Ramtal Amamra, and the Principal Private Secretary of the Presidency, Abdelaziz Khalaf. Following the audience, the Tunisian head of government had this to say.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. في البداية حبيت نقول لكم اللي أنا مسرورة جدا بتواجدي هنا في الجزائر.
First of all, I would like to express how happy I am to be here in Algeria. And on this occasion, I hail the government and the Algerian people. I had the honor to meet with the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, to whom I conveyed the greetings of his brother, the President of the Tunisian Republic, Kais Said, who reiterated his congratulations for the success of the Arab Summit held on November the 1st and 2nd, wishing more achievements and success. My presence today with you and my meetings with the Algerian Prime Minister are within the framework of the exchange of views and follow-up of the projects decided during the Major Commission cooperation, and to examine ways and means to develop this cooperation and upgrade it to a renewed strategic level. I also had the honor to meet with my brother Ayman bin Abdurrahman to prepare the upcoming commission held here in Algeria. Finally, I would like to warmly thank Algeria for all what it did to Tunisia during this delicate situation witnessed by our country.
In a related activity, the Prime Minister held discussions with his Tunisian counterpart. The two parties put forward the deeply rooted relations existing between the two countries and reviewed ways and means to further consolidate cooperation in light of the guidelines of the two heads of state meant to achieve a better strategic complementarity and development. The two sides reaffirmed their commitment in reactivating the cooperation mechanisms and the follow-up of common projects, as well as strengthening economic exchanges in future meetings, namely the High Algerian-Tunisian Joint Commission. The discussions took place in the presence of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ramtal Amamra. Najla Bouden, the head of the Tunisian government, ended her working visit to Algeria. On Monday, she was seen off at the Houari Boumediene International Airport by the Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman. To parliamentary activity now, the majority of the senators adopted on supplementary finance law of 2022, and that during a plenary session presided over by the chairman of the Council of the Nation, Saleh Goujir. For his part, the Finance Minister Ibrahim Jamal Ksali presented to the Commission for Economy and Finance Affairs of the Council of the Nation the 2023 Finance Draft Bill. He affirmed that the new bill comes in an exceptional context marked by the international economic and financial tensions. And despite these tensions, the state was able to achieve its economic revival policy with the aim of achieving a diversified economy that generates wealth and employment. The head of the Constitutional Court, Omar Belhaj, who was the guest of the National Radio, indicated that the prerogatives of the institution ensures the democratic practice and preserves the citizens' rights and freedoms despite its recent creation 1 year ago. According to the same speaker, the status allows it to be an international active institution. On Monday, a national electronic platform was launched for the cases and sentences consultations. It also allows the withdrawal of simple copies of sentences issued here and there across the national territory. This initiative will allow citizens to avoid travels and all the relevant expenditures. The 5th Annual Congress of the Research Network in the General Administration of the Middle East and North Africa kicked off in Algiers in the presence of the President's advisor and the Interior Minister. The good local and provincial governance topped this meeting. More details with Melissa Klepash.
The objective of this MENA Congress is to debate new local development approaches, keeping in mind the digitization of administration as a priority for the local authorities, according to the Interior Minister Brahim Rad, adding that the state adopted communal and provincial codes to the new governance requirements.
The main obstacle facing local authorities in our country is the exploitation of digitization in the management of municipalities for the edification of modern managing system, knowing that the perspectives of local development has gone beyond sectoral development.
Regarding remote areas, Mr. Murad recalled that the President of the Republic had established a special program for these regions, which already reached a completion rate of 90%, with the aim to reduce the socio-economic differences, recalling that 12,000 remote areas across the national territory has benefited from an emergency plan, with the creation of nearly 30,000 projects.
The new vision adopted by the President recalls the importance of the local authorities. This new approach will allow the new Algeria to stand out in terms of governance and financial means, allowing the implementation of the President of the Republic's program in terms of good governance at local, regional and international levels.
The state's support for local authorities is still ongoing, according to the Interior Minister, highlighting that it managed to narrow the digitization gap between isolated areas and cities through the adoption of a new program that will allow Algeria to apply modern approaches of local development. The General Director of MENAPAR Network indicated that this is a scientific gathering of research and debate on new forms of local development, being a new trend in the public policy, as well as the dialogue on the local administration's decisions meant to face both the sanitary and financial crisis. As for the participants, they came from 20 different countries and will debate for 3 days the modern management in local authorities.
We've worked on this matter for about a year in collaboration with the network and the National Institute of Administrative Science in Brussels alongside the Public Administration of Al-Bahrain. The event's goal is to re-enroll the National School of Administration in the international dynamics and bring it back on the international scene.
There is awareness on the necessity of change and development. Therefore, I think that Algeria is on the right path.
It is worth noting that the digitization of public services is a necessity for local authorities. It will not only facilitate access to administrative procedures, but will also allow the better management of these institutions.
On the sidelines of these proceedings, the Interior Minister met with the Palestinian Minister, Chairman of the General Employees Office, Musa Abu Zaid. In other news, and at the Shahid Ibn Ramadan Academy, Major General Commander of the Military Academy of Shershel proceeded to the opening of the membership ceremony in the presence of representatives of the different forces and institutions of the Ministry of National Defense. After reviewing the formations gathered in the courtyard, the General Director of the Academy gave a speech. Later on, the badges were given and the formations moved to the line of the parade where exhibitions of the sports formations of the different teams and military exhibitions were presented. The ceremony then ended with a performance of military music reflecting perfect harmony, coordination and organization of the Academy's students.
المتناغمة والموحدة والمزينة بصورة تعبر عن مدى لحظاتها السيادية شعبها نجاح لم الشمس أكدنا للمرة الألف.
In another context, the international media outlets recently reported the holding of a joint Algerian-Russian anti-terrorist tactical exercise of the ground forces in the south of the country. In this regard, the Ministry of National Defense indicated that this exercise, which was scheduled as part of the cooperation activities with the Russian army in the fight against terrorism, did not take place, and that any exercise with the Russian partner or with any other partner will be solely announced via an official statement by the National Defense Ministry. The President of the Sahrawi Republic and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Brahim Ghali, called for the ending of the double standard policy in dealing with issues and conflicts at the international level. Ghali affirmed that the Polisario Front only calls for implementing the international legitimacy, adding that the status of Western Sahara is clearly mentioned in successive UN resolutions, which is an issue of decolonization, the settlement of which involves the holding of a referendum of self-determination and independence. The Moroccan Social Front is still boiling with fresh demonstrations to denounce social disparities and normalization, a shameful process initiated by the Makhzen regime. Ines Killo reports.
سؤالي هو ألا يتعارض
The former head of government of the Makhzen, Saad al-Din al-Uthmani, known to be a self-contradictory person who always says it and does the opposite and never assumes his acts, which remained faithful to his reputation in his answer to a journalist of an Arab channel on the subject of normalization with a Zionist entity.
It is true, it was a hard and difficult moment, but it is a state's decision.
This former official betrayed the Palestinian issue with a single signature, a shameful agreement that paved the way for despicable normalization that put an entire country into the hands of the Zionists.
We continue to reject the pact of the century and the violations committed by the occupation authorities.
Al-Uthmani seeks to seal a deal by circumventing his label as a defender of Palestine and Al-Aqsa and criticizing the normalization pact with a Zionist entity in an attempt to sway the Moroccan people, totally rejecting this shameful agreement. Betrayals do not intend to stop after the Facebook administration revealed the Pegasus spying system of the Makhzen that shocked the world. Another scandal emerged as the Facebook Meta administration had previously arrested 43 new accounts for Makhzen used to carry out defamation campaign against detained journalists such as Omar Radi and Suleiman Reissouni to silence all these opponents.
In the same context, a new investigation shed light on the Makhzen regime's practices aimed at silencing the last opposition forces' voices in Morocco, and that by using dozens of fake social media accounts to discredit and harass the detained journalists. The investigation is being conducted by organizations and institutions fighting disinformation in the United States. A flashback now to the founder of the Algerian mother state, Al-Amir Abdelkader, and who is one of his famous forts meant to preserve the then young Algerian nation, namely the castle of Taza in Tismsil province. More details with our reporter Najah Tayar.
Located in Burj Al Amir Abdel Qadir locality in Tisamsilat, the fort of Taza is one of the symbols and monuments retracing the resistance of the Amir Abdel Qadir against colonialism. The citadel is surrounded by mountains from every side. The location choice of it was not fortuitous. Given this site's geographical position, the Amir Abdel Qadir was convinced to build the castle here in 1838, to later on be the place where the first Shura Council was held in 1839. In 1838, the Amir Abdel Qadir gave the order to the Caliph of Miliana, Muhammad bin Alal, to build a bastion in Taza, and it is here where the Amir wrote several poems which were transcribed on oak panels. Being aware of the colonizer military force at the time, the Amir Abdel Qadir decided to strengthen his defense arsenal by erecting a bastion here in Taza, where the fortress is all surrounded by the Wansharis mountain range as a shield. July 3, 1839, Taza was the stage of a crucial event. The Emir gathered all his caliphs for the Shura Council, a council that led to the decision of taking up arms against the French colonizer, also the Treaty of Tafna rejection decision. The fort of Taza has not yet revealed all its secrets. This archaeological site must be preserved to continue the excavations already started. You should know that a soon restoration of the fort is planned. The fort of Taza is considered today as an important milestone. It also represents a favorite tourist destination, especially that the place still contains many mysteries still in need to be spotlighted.
To sports now, and the FIFA World Cup 2022 being held in Qatar. Cameroon secured a 3-3 draw with Serbia in Group G, topped so far by Brazil following its narrow margin triumph over Switzerland with 1-0, and ensured its progress to the second round. As for Group H, the second African representative Ghana defeated South Korea with 3-2, while the clash between Portugal and Uruguay ended in a 2-0 victory for the Portuguese side, which it ensured them a berth in the second round. With that, our today's news edition comes to a close. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye.